Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it. So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and
Jason. Welcome to the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me today is Jason. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
Good. Well, this episode, at the time of this recording, is kind of timely. As of not even 24 hours ago, Putin has declared war. Legit attacks have happened. President Biden has basically said, hey, Putin, the allies don't like this, and blood is on your hands for this conflict. Really came out and said that. A very bold statement by the President of the United States.
Already taken over the Kiev airport.
Oh, wow. So they're moving faster than I can. This is a real conflict. Jason and I are Canadian, and Canada has entered the conflict as well. Prime Minister Trudeau has made his statements. Of course, you can just Google that. Myself, I'm a military member. I'm in the Navy. That's of interest to me, of course, because there are ships. I believe it's HMCS Halifax, I believe, is leaving or has been told that they're going to deploy to that conflict, and we're sending troops as well. Of course, our military is small compared to the U.S. However, whatever our size as a military, it's irrelevant. We will still offer what we can, what support we can. That's what we do as Canada or any allied nation. This is so fresh. I haven't even researched other nations like Australia, New Zealand, Britain, but I would assume every country will support this as allies to the U.S. Have you heard any different or?
I haven't really. I just saw the headlines that it is, in fact, Russia attacks Ukraine.
This is not a news channel, but just go ahead and Google, of course, the conflict.
I'm sure by the time this is out, it'll be very clear as to what is exactly happening.
Yeah, it's that fresh. And what's crazy is I remember the rumblings. The rumblings have been around. I'm like, okay, Putin's not going to really do this, is he? And yes, he is. He has. And to say it's, I'm going to say scary is a word. To say it's not something, it would be an understatement. I mean, this is a big deal.
This is huge. To declare war on a neighboring country is a big deal.
Yeah.
The rippling effects may be quite significant moving forward. There's concerns now that China's going to feel more emboldened to take over Taiwan.
It's like kids in a playground, man. Like, oh yeah, they're throwing punches to the. Why don't we just join the fray? It's that mob mentality, right? When you're in a mob or a hey, let's make some noise too while everyone's distracted.
Right.
Well, what happens in these conflicts, Jason, and this is very common through the World War, Vietnam War, Korean War, of course, 9/11, it's usually there's an increase in military activity, of course, and military recruiting. People will feel, using your word, emboldened or encouraged or patriotic or whatever the words might be to say, you know what, I'm going to help out this cause. I'm young, I'm strong, or whatever it might be. I'm going to join the military. That's great. I'm in the military. I think it's fantastic. People join. I don't think war is fantastic, but I think it's great if you want to help out, join the cause, fight for freedom, all the things you think the military is for your country, security, then by all means, it's a great job and a great avenue for people to be employed and to serve their country and to serve their fellow man. And of course, we give our thanks to all the veterans throughout the world. People have lost their lives to these causes throughout the world. But before you can start your job in the military, you have to go what's called boot camp, Jason, or basic training. We've seen many movies like Full Metal Jacket or TV shows that show you what basic training or boot camp can be like. Of course, it's sensationalized for the movies or for TV shows. I've been through basic training course, and I actually got to teach basic training. Now, I say basic training because in Canada, that's what we call it. I don't know where it's called in other countries, but I believe the U.S. calls it boot camp. It's the same idea. So I have a unique experience of going through basic training almost 20 years ago and being an instructor or a drill sergeant during basic training. I just finished it a year ago and I did it for 2 years. So it was a really fun experience. In today's episode, we're going to go through these misconceptions about military training or boot camp. From the misconceptions of drill sergeants, what boot camps are for, things like that. Well, we have listeners from all around the world on this show. We do have listeners from Australia and the UK. Maybe some of them have actually served military. I actually have some friends that listen to this podcast that are in the military, so bear with me. And I also have some recruits that I actually taught in basic training who listened to this podcast. And I'm wondering if some of them had some of these misconceptions before they themselves joined. In fact, I know many of my recruits did, and we'll speak to that as we go through it, because I would often talk to my recruits about some of their own fears or misconceptions about what they were going through live at the time. So these are very true and very real misconceptions about boot camp.
And I would suspect these misconceptions are from movies. Watched a lot of war movies growing up. I would think that these misconceptions are from entertainment.
Yes, I agree. All right, J.E., you got number 10.
The first misconception we're going to talk about is that there's no family contact allowed whatsoever. But that's not true. That's something I had not thought of prior to doing this, is the idea that you can't talk or communicate or interact with your family while you are at boot camp. But it isn't true. There is limited contact, and they do minimize it. It's typically like about a phone call a week to family or close friends. They're able to write letters. I don't know if now they're able to do emails or whatever. Maybe you can speak to that, Ryan. When you go to boot camp or people go to basic training here in Canada, is that an actual reality?
There is contact with family, friends, and what have you. When I went through in 2003, I didn't have a cell phone or smartphone. I mean, cell phones were around, but I didn't take a cell phone, so I wasn't able to call my wife at the time via that way or text or anything like that. However, yes, we did the phone calls at night and or on the weekends, because there's payphones where we slept at night in the building. There's payphones that we would line up or take turns on the payphone and say, hey, hurry up, can I call my wife now? And often I would actually keep my phone calls to once or twice a week. That's it. Monday to Friday, you're pretty busy. As a new recruit, you're busy. You're up early, but you're very busy throughout the day. You're working right late till night, and you're up again. So there's very little time to really just sit there and talk to your loved one, or because you're wasting time not shining boots, getting your uniform ready, you name it, right?
I would suspect then a lot of these phone calls and interactions with family is more important to the families themselves and less important to you, because you are quite occupied with what it is that you're participating in.
Mm-hmm. Fast forward 18 years later, I'm an instructor at the school. So now I'm seeing it from the side of the instructors and with the advance of technology. So every recruit has a cell phone, and we do not take their cell phones away. It's a new world. And I was actually kind of surprised by that. So they have what's called, I can't remember, it's only been a year since I've been there, but I already kind of forget the times. They're allowed to have cell phone time nightly. Each night. So they'd have their cell phones in their possession. We did not take them away. We'd take them away on occasion. I hate to use the word punishment. That's not the word that we use there, but what was it called again? Boy, it's funny that we use these terms, but you move on to other jobs in your military career, and I forget the term. But anyways, so we take their phones away as a punishment if the platoon doesn't do certain things. So that was very rare. And we'd have to get special permission from higher ups to take it away for longer than 2 or 3 days type thing. We as an instructor could take away for a short period of time, but anything longer than 24 hours, you would have to get permission. Whole new world now with cell phones. And we kind of entrusted the recruits to not disobey when they're allowed to have their phones in their rooms at night. But we know those were broken. We know people were on their phones past. And that's okay in a sense, because that's just the world we live in. That's the recruits we're hiring. These kids are born with a cell phone in their hand now, right? They're literally born with screens in their hands. It's just the world we live in. I think the military now has recognized that if you want people to be recruited, which is an issue, at least in Canada, I don't know about the States, getting new recruits, getting these young kids in the door, you start telling them, hey, when you go to basic training, you're not going to have your phone anymore. They're not going to join. So let me make this a public message to anyone listening in Canada. Yes, you get to use your cell phone in basic training, but you're not using it while you're in class, while you're out marching. I'm just talking about your time at night. Basically, when the instructors go home for the night type thing, you're going to use it when you're going to use it. There is a time allotted each day, and so they can text whoever they want, talk to whoever they want, and they do. And I think that does help with their mental health, and I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Good insight. Is that something actually you were worried about going in? This is actually something I had not thought of, not having contact with the outside world. When you said, hey, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to go to basic training, did you feel at the time that your contact with the outside world would be completely shut off? Was that a concern?
So I went through, again, in 2003. So I feel like it was pre-Google, pre-Facebook, pre-smartphone. So the idea of really not being social media connected to all the outside world it wasn't really a thought or a sacrifice per se. You're just so busy. Again, my wife at the time, to call her daily would have been redundant. I'm like, okay, honey, I shine boots, march got
Right.
yelled at, did push-ups. Now I got to go iron my uniform or whatever it might have been. The weekly calls were just fine for me. I was so focused, and it actually just helped me to be focused, not to worry about other stuff. I actually found
Right.
it less distracting.
That's why I think it's more important. It's probably more of a relief for the people who aren't participating to hear from you than
Right.
the other way around. But knowing that, these young recruits have access to that, as you say, probably just alleviates the mental health stress of being away from family, whether they participate in that communication or not. I don't know, but
My second son went through the basic training, and actually he went through it just before I went and taught there, funny enough. Speaking of cell phones, of course, he had his, so he would actually text me every now and then, his concerns or fears, some of his misconceptions, and I kind of cheated with him, I'm like, hey, buddy, it's okay, it's just a game, or don't worry about it, or I'd give him the insights of, he would tell me something that was said or done during basic training. I kind of gave him some cheat codes. So there you go. But the cell phone for him was his support network to me, and it helped him, and he got through just fine. Yeah.
yeah, cool.
So another misconception, number 9, is that every new recruit is big and strong, or you have to be big and strong to get through basic training.
Well, all they have to do is look at you.
Yeah, that's definitely true. If I can get through it, anybody can. Now, in the States, apparently there's a minimum weight requirement to enlist. I guess, you can't be too light, or you might have like some sort of bone disease where you're so light, like carrying a backpack will break your back or something. Or
I think sadly nowadays, most people are not too light. Most people are probably,
right,
unfortunately, too heavy.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, there is no requirement for size. As a basic training instructor, I saw all shapes and sizes. And when I say kids, I will often refer to the recruits as kids. It's just our moniker we gave the new recruits, call them kids because they're young in the brain when it comes to the military, even though some of them could be as old as 50 when they join or as young as 18. So they all come in different shapes and sizes, and that's great. We want that. You don't need to have superhuman strength. I also recommend you don't be overly weak. The idea is that you have teamwork, and a lot of the things that you do together. You want to be able to get through the program, but as far as feats of strength, that's not what basic training is about. You are pushed to your own personal limit. You're definitely challenged, but you can have a guy who's very strong that can't jump the wall. There's a 6-foot wall that you have to leap, and I was horrible at it. So, I'm actually a pretty in shape guy. I mean, I'm 46 now, but when I joined at 27, I was still, pretty decent shape. I was never grossly obese or never incredibly weak. I've always been a pretty normal, strong. Nothing's really has challenged me physical fitness-wise throughout my life. And basic training was actually easy for me, physical fitness. I didn't have any problems with it. But there's what's called the 6-foot wall. There's a board wall, and you just step on it. You kind of get to it and you leap over it, grab it. And my upper body strength is horrible. There's 2 things I can't do. The bars, like monkey bars, I'm horrible at that. I feel like my weight to my upper body ratio is horrible.
Yeah.
The monkey bars and the wall. Now, with the wall, we also train to show how to help your buddy. This is where the teamwork comes in. We will train to this. If you can't get over the wall yourself, you're not alone. And we show how to safely help somebody over the wall. When you squat with your back against the wall, put your hands in a cupping position, and then they step on your hands, you lift the guy over the wall. The guy that can get over the wall by himself helps the guy that can't get over the wall. So that's how you work around. That's the teamwork.
So I suspect the guy that get over the wall, he's the last one over the wall.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what happens. So when we go through the obstacle course, which this is a part of, that's exactly what happens is that, okay, who can get over the wall? And the people that can get over it on their own are pretty confident they go last and they help the people over. And I was one of those people. I just sucked at getting over that wall. And I'm almost 6 feet tall myself, but
Okay. Boot camp is all about brainwashing. Now, this is definitely something that comes from the from entertainment world, where you go to boot camp and all they're doing is instructing you to
kill.
Killing machine, and you have no mercy or empathy for anybody or anything. And I can kind of see maybe the wording brainwashing is a little extreme, but there would obviously be things that they want to drill into you as to your purpose and the agenda at hand, the significance, like as you say, if there's teamwork involved, the importance of being a team player and all the rest. But to suggest that it's a brainwashing exercise is probably a little bit extreme.
Absolutely true.
What you experienced, I guess, going back to you, obviously, having experienced it.
You're right about the movies and doing that, kill. We're here to kill, or this is my weapon, this is my gun, all this stuff. Again, I can't speak to everyone's experience, and I'm sure like Navy SEALs or these Delta Force, I don't know. Like this is basic training. Okay,
we're talking about boot camp, basic training, the very minimal.
Right. Yeah, and let me explain something to anyone that's not familiar with how the military works, especially here in Canada. Basic training is just what it means. It doesn't mean that it's not overly difficult, and it is basic, but whether you're a cook or you're going to be an Air Force pilot, I'm not trying to say that a cook's useless and an Air Force pilot's the greatest thing. No, I'm just saying there's just different parts of your brain being used here. That's all I'm saying. I can't be a pilot, and I also don't think I have the ability to be a good cook. So the point is, whether you're a cook or a pilot or an infantry guy or myself, an operator on a ship, we all have to go through the same basic training program. That's the base. And then you move on from basic training to your trade schools. And then within your trade, then you go to further qualifications within your trade. But everyone starts at the bottom. Everyone gets yelled at. Everyone gets the push-up punishment, all that stuff. No matter what trade you are or job you are in the military, you start at basic training. Okay. The brainwashing part, Jason, the misconception is what we do to the recruits is we take the civilian out of them, meaning it is a different job. You're not a civilian anymore. You have literally signed on a dotted line. This is what they have to understand.
It can be a part of a weeding out process. I mean,
Absolutely.
You have to have a mental toughness because physical difficulties don't just include your body. Absolutely. It's a mental game as well. And so as you go through these basic things where you are getting the civilian washed out of you, there's a mental toughness that has to come along with that process. You as a trainer or being a trainee in that process, you're either going to help somebody go through that process, and you also have to have the toughness mentally to go through that process and that change and realize that this is something very different than what you probably have ever experienced before.
Absolutely, yeah. The military is a unique entity. People feel it right away when civilians first walk into that door wearing their civilian clothes or wearing the clothes they wore in the airport, right? And I will meet them as their instructor. I really enjoyed this. It's their first day when they walk in. I love it. I absolutely love it because when they walk into the building, they have to start marching right away. You're not walking. You're no longer a civilian. When you walk through those doors, we tell them, swing those arms, and they literally have put their bags down. I tell them to open up their bags. I search their bags for contraband, everything. And I tell them to march. They have to march everywhere, and I'm instructing them how to march. I said, when you walk down the hallways, you're doing this, arms straight, and already you're yelling, not screaming, but I'm swing those arms, get the bends out of the elbow. You do that kind of talk right away. Their first day, they're and that's where the misconception of the brainwashing is. No, you're not working at Tim Hortons anymore. You're not the gas jockey anymore. You're not even a medical student anymore in university where it's all cozy and you're having your little Starbucks coffee while you're studying your notes. No. I don't care about anything that you've done in the past. I don't care. Right now, you're not walking properly. Right away, it's a shock. And that's what they have to experience. So it's not brainwashing, but you're readjusting the brain that this is a different life. You have to understand orders, understand instruction. You're part of a team. You're no longer an individual.
There's a sense of like a community. We're all on the same page. Yep. We're all doing the same thing. Exactly. We're all have the same goals. Yes. And there we go. And everybody's an equal.
Male, female, tall, short, fat, skinny, strong, weak. It doesn't matter. At this point right now, you don't even know how to walk properly in my hallway. That's day one. Which kind of bleeds into number 7, that boot camp is designed for recruits to fail. Well, you spoke to a weeding out process, and it's true in the sense of not everyone can do it, and that's okay.
Not your job to weed them out.
That's right.
They will weed themselves out.
Exactly. Perfectly said. And this is what I would tell recruits, especially the ones that are struggling. And I would say to the recruits, just so you guys know, this is a program that I didn't create. I didn't come up with these teaching plans. I didn't come up with the schedule even. I'm beholden to the schedule too. The schedule is created by people outside of me. And all I do is take these little ducklings from place to place as the drill instructor, and other staff would teach them first aid or what have you, even like the rappel tower. I didn't teach them the rappel tower. All these different areas that I would just take them to it. I'm like their guide, their tour guide, and I keep them in line and I keep them fit, or I keep them to make sure they make their timings and make sure they're in order, make sure they represent me, I represent them. We go hand in hand, all that good stuff. It's a lot of fun. The point is, though, the weeding out process, they do it to themselves. And I would tell them that we as an instructor don't look for ways to get you out. I want everyone to pass because it's actually less paperwork for me. Having you guys quit or leave or fail is actually paperwork for the staff.
Unless you're a complete dick, You want people to have success.
Again, all we're doing is redirecting your mind and body to a different job. But however, your daily job is nothing like this. There'll be days where you're so bored, you're just twiddling your thumbs, which is just like any job. But this is just high energy, high tempo. Now, you might not like it. I understand that. It also pushes recruits to feel fatigue and all that stuff, because there's times throughout your job you're going to be very tired. You got to work through it. But the point is, it's not designed to fail you, is what I'm getting at. It's designed to show you this is what the job can be like. This is what you can experience at some points or many points throughout your career, depending on your job, depending on your what trade you are. Some trades have more fatigue than others, absolutely. That's what it's designed to do. So if you say to yourself, oof, I don't like this, and I don't ever want to experience this fatigue again, or I don't ever want to experience talking to or going through the chain of command again, I just want everyone to be equal all the time, then yeah, this job isn't for you. That's the weeding out process, is for you to say to yourself, I don't like the chain of command. I don't like drill. I don't like wearing a uniform. I don't like being told that I'm going to be posted to this place or that place, or station, as they say in the States. Okay, that's the job. And so this just opens people's eyes to, this is what my career could be like. But the program, we want you to pass. We want to fill those holes that we have in the military. We want you to pass, but we also want people that want to be there.
Yeah, and they have to have a certain level of maturity, strength, and all the rest, because you do not want underprepared people to be in that job either, underqualified.
I'm sorry if I'm talking too much.
No, it's just good insight.
Okay.
I don't have much to speak of all of these things, but I appreciate hearing your insight, because I can't really give as much as you can, obviously.
Well, you're coming from the angle of
a civilian.
Yeah, civilian. This is maybe some misconceptions you might have had.
For sure. A lot of these are because of my experience with the military is through entertainment, for the most part. Full Metal Jacket, Platoon,
We are not allowed to say those things. What that guy said in that basic training opening, oof, you cannot say that stuff at all to recruits. I'll get fired. I would have gotten fired the first day.
Yeah. So another misconception, and it goes along with some of the earlier ideas, is that all you are doing is physical training for, your whole boot camp or basic training experience, which is obviously not correct. There's a lot of different angles and experiences that you're going to have. And it's not just physical. I would suspect there's in-class training, teaching. You're not just doing 24/7 P90X or some training routine for like the whole time.
This might come as a relief to some and frustrating to others. And I saw both sides of that to some recruits. There's some recruits where, of course, again, as an instructor, we call like team exercises or something like that, where we didn't call it punishment, but like, okay, guys, my favorite thing, I don't know why I'm good at it, is planking. Horrible push-ups. So as an instructor, any of my past recruits, they're going to be like, oh, Rebalkin, I knew that about you, or should have guessed that about you. So I didn't do a lot of push-ups with my recruits. I would do planking, because I could plank for 2-3 minutes, but people after 10-30 seconds, they're just like, ugh, they're all screaming. They're like, you can see their faces going red, their butts sagging to the ground. And I'd be like, come on, guys, I'm 44 years old and I don't even work out and I could do this forever. And that was fun. I would even push myself. But the idea is that there's some recruits who they get out, they could plank for 10-20 minutes. Who knows? So some of these recruits are so fit that,
Sure, yeah.
And when I would tell them we're doing, another thing I like doing was squats. So I would do squats, I would do, and planking. I remember this one recruit, I could still see her face. She was just like this physically fit beast. And she was, of course, kind of tiny. So she had that, talk about muscle or strength to body ratio. She was kind of tiny, but very strong. Like a spider almost, She would love it when it's like, oh, yeah, team punishment time. She's like, oh, great, I get my exercise in for the day. Twiddling my thumbs here, I want to get more exercise. You're right, Jason. We got to learn. We got to learn stuff. There's some weapon handling. Of course, drill. Oh, drill takes so much time. Like, we got to teach them everything with drill. Now, that's where I come in for the most part. Or the other instructors is teaching like about turn and marching, saluting, rifle drill. All the stuff you see in those movies. That stuff you have to teach how to do the ceremonial stuff with. Still very basic. There's stuff that we don't teach. We only have so much time, but how to march properly and in unison, all that stuff we're teaching over and over again. So yeah, if you just sit there and just did push-ups and sit-ups all day, well, that's not the program. You're right. This is not a gym. You're not coming to basic training to get in shape. We really encourage students to get the best shape they can before they come, because it'll just be that much easier for you. Because like you said, Jay, there's just other things to learn. First aid, teamwork, field exercises, all that stuff. So you're right. It's a busy program. It's amazing how much you do in a short amount of time. And physical fitness is not something we do to get them in shape. It's just something we do to motivate them and to keep them moving. It's highly, highly recommend you come in shape because we don't have time to get you in shape.
I would suspect people who have the misconception that it's physical activity the whole time you're there may not want to sign up because they will feel unqualified to participate if they felt all I'm going to do is exercise or do physical work the whole time. They go like, I'm not that person. And then there'll be others who are like, I am that person. I'm a physical specimen. And that's something that I have that's one of my, strengths is to be strong and physically active. You might be scaring people off if they think they're doing that the whole time. And then people who have the misconception that that is what they're doing the whole time, that they'll think it's going to be a breeze.
If you come sort of out of shape, you'll get in more shape. If you come in really crazy in shape, you're not going to get in more shape. There is a program within the Canadian military. We do have physical fitness tests that people have to pass, and they take that while they're there. It used to be when I joined, you had to pass the test before you joined basic training, but now they do it there. If you do fail that test, they have a program while you're there, kind of like a mini camp, boot camp within the boot camp, where you're taken off platoon, you're taken to this other platoon of people that there for like a month, that's what they would do. So if you kind of don't pass the physical fitness portion, you're taken off the training program, put into this you're going to get in shape program because you want to be there. That's great. When you're not quite in shape or physically strong to pass the basic physical fitness exam that you have to have while you're there, then they just work on that every day. Boom, 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 boom. And then they go back into platoon later on after they pass that.
So that just goes and helps take away the misconception that they want you to fail.
We give them so many chances and retests. Oh yeah, let me tell you, retest, drill retest. We do everything we can. At least in the Canadian military, we want you to succeed, and we've provided everything we can. But yeah, even then, some people just do fail out, and that's fine. Nothing to be ashamed of. I'm not a doctor. You can't be everything, right? And military is not for everybody.
Yeah, fair enough.
This kind of bleeds into number 5, that a physically fit person won't struggle in boot camp. So we kind of already talked about this. So we won't talk much more about this. So yes, you will still struggle in boot camp because, like we said before, there's mind things that you have to do, teamwork. You get these physical fitness guys, jock guys or girls, and they think they're just the bee's knees, and they figure out that they can't do knots, or they can't iron their clothes, or they can't do first aid, or who knows. So physical fitness, though a big part of your training, it's also not a big part. There's so much you have to do. People have a hard time in the cold. If you're there during the cold, yeah, you can bench 250, but you can't, your feet are freezing, or the heat. There's a lot of challenges beyond being able to bench press something, I assure you. And that's where the physical meets the mental. So when you're out there freezing to minus 25 weather, I don't care how much you can bench press. I've seen a lot of tears in basic training. So you got to have the mental fortitude as well. And I think mental fortitude, quite frankly, is more important than the physical one.
Sure. All military recruits are highly patriotic. You think that would be a good place to start, but I suspect not everybody that goes into the military are as patriotic as we might think. They are looking at this more as an avenue of career, employment, financial security for their future, and not so much just because they absolutely love their country that they're serving. Did you get that sense?
I joined for the job. It was 2003. I had 2 young kids. I was a young married man with 2 young kids. I was going to school. I actually took the police exam, and I did fairly well. I passed the police physical fitness exam. Jason, you were there actually for that. If you remember. You watched me do that. Yeah. It almost made me puke, but I got through it. Passed the written test. It's quite a fun exam, and I did all the things you got to do. And then I got my first interview. It was the Delta Police, and I actually got my first interview. And they actually said, I was 26 at the time. They're like, oh, you have everything that we would need, but you don't really have any work experience that we're looking for. Now, this again was 2002 or 3, and maybe it's different now. I was like, oh, work experience. I just did normal jobs. I was going to school. I didn't really have any job. I guess at 26, I don't know what they were thinking I needed, but they felt, so they actually, one of the guys said, well, why don't you try going to the reserves just for a couple of years, get the work experience, and then reapply in a few years. I went to the recruiting center, and I actually said, can I just join the reserves? keep going to school type thing that I was doing and just work on the weekends in the reserves. And they convinced me, the recruiter did their job. Why don't you just join full time and do it for 3 years instead of a couple years, and then you'll have your work experience, and then your first contract is over in 3 years, and then you can just honorable discharge, go back to police. Well, what happens is you get a big pay raise at your 4-year mark. I hit my 3-year mark, and I'm like kind of comfortable in my job already. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm pragmatic. I got a steady job. It's medical, dental, pension. And so I just signed on for the rest of my contract. So here I am, 18 and a half years in.
I mean, you weren't so patriotic that you would have done this for minimum wage?
Yeah, no. But I will do whatever is required for my country. Of course, I love Canada. I love our freedoms and honor all those military members who served past and present and future. And I think I saw that too as an instructor. I would say the majority of the recruits didn't join because they loved the country. And there were those who did, and you would know it who they were. And now that we have a conflict with Russia, there's a conflict happening right now in the world. That's what I mean. There'll probably be an uptick. I would be not surprised to hear of some sort of uptick, both Canada and U.S., maybe the other allied countries. I wonder. I don't know. The data would have to be released at some time, but I wonder if there'll be an uptick in recruitment because of the conflict. I would say the majority, what I saw, yeah. It wasn't necessarily, though they loved their country, they joined because the military, we see that in movies. Kid, you got nothing going on, you just go join the military. And it's actually not bad advice. If you're not too sure what to do with your life, and this is my recruiting to the Canadians, if you're kind of wishy-washy, you're not too sure, and you're physically fit, and you're capable, and you kind of don't really know what to do, just try it out. You might like it, and it's a good job. It's steady income. You don't want to have to worry about a paycheck. But if you have a real dream or passion for something, then I'd also recommend you do that instead. So, it's just not for everybody. All right, so we talked about this briefly. This is number 3. The basic training's gotten softer or easier over the years. Now, I remember when I went through in 2003, I honestly thought, Jason, that I was going to be physically struck by my instructors. I truly believed that they could still hit me back then. In fact, I remember some of my instructors at the time saying, "Oh, you're lucky we don't get to hit you anymore." So they would say that to me. And
so they're passing on the misconceptions to keep you in line or whatever. Yeah.
Again, I can't speak to Navy SEALs. I can't speak to these hardcore or the same equivalents in Canada. I can't speak to have people been hit in the military? Or obviously. Had they been struck by their senior instructors? I would assume so. I never saw it, and I never did it. Basic training itself, no. If someone right now, today, especially I speak to Canada, like if an instructor literally struck a student, game over, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge no-no. I mean, it's right up there, obviously, with sexual harassment. You can't physically assault people. In fact, we're even told, I will say officially, we're not allowed to swear at the recruits.
Oh.
We're not allowed to name call or give them nicknames.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But the idea is it could be a form of bullying or... degrading. So they just say no nicknames, and you're not allowed to call them names. Now, you can curse in the sense of while you're instructing, but you can't say to a recruit, "You effing idiot."
Right. Not directed at them as an individual.
But you could say, if you're looking at their uniform, "What the F is this on your uniform?" Is it easier or softer? It depends. Meaning, it's a different world. We're not World War I. This isn't World War II. It's a different warfare. It's modern warfare. And again, it depends on your trade. It depends on what is required of you. I'm Navy. I'm what's called a soft element. They call us soft. The Army thinks we're soft, which is fine. I get 3 square a day on a ship. I have hot showers. I get it. It's a different job than the Army guys digging trenches and out in the elements. Absolutely. They're training above basic training. I can't speak to it. I don't know what they go through for that kind of training. That's what I'm getting at. Like these Army guys, when they leave basic training and they go do their trade training, I expect they're treated differently than a sailor in our fleet school. We're inside a building learning, got computer systems and what have you. It's different elements and different warfare, right? Has it gotten easier? Well, the world's different too. Is life easier? The world is easier. We don't have to do this to our recruits anymore. It's a different kind of war, a different kind of battle. And if you treated recruits like they did in World War II, so is it softer or easier? Maybe, but it's unnecessary to be that way, the way it was then. That's how I look at it. At the end of the day, it's mental health. Punching a recruit in the back of the head because they missed the target, what does that do? That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't do anything for the recruit. You're not teaching them. Doesn't mean I haven't seen tears. It doesn't mean people quit. People still don't get through this program. It's still hard because people aren't passing all the time.
I think most people quit because of themselves and not because of what was done to them.
Exactly.
Misconception here is that all military servicemen are sharpshooters. So everybody's an amazing firearms expert.
Because we see that in movies and TVs, right? Zach's military. He could do X, Y,
Yeah.
Z. Yeah.
Yeah. But since most people aren't participating in a firearms type of career, I would think most aren't sharpshooters.
Hands up for Ryan. I'm a terrible shot. I don't know what it is. I don't get it. Now, look, when it comes to the end of the day, I don't know how good anyone's shot is in the heat of battle for basic training level. You throw in the average person in the military who've only been through basic training, they go on to be cooks, operators on a ship, or a clerk. We all have the same basic training, same weapon handling classes.
Sure.
But you put us in a firefight right away, like, of course, we're all going to be, we're not used to a firefight. That's not our job. We don't do that. And I like firing the gun. It's okay. I respect the weapon completely. I have a healthy respect for a weapon.
Yeah.
Some people will really love it. And that's great. Some people just love firing weapons. I only will do it when I have to. I have no interest in doing it recreationally or extracurricular activity for it. I respect people that can do a very good job at it, and they're excellent shooters. Ryan, not a great shot. It's not my forte. I do what I have to do to stay in the military, but all right. Last one, Jason. Drill sergeants, which was me. Or we call them in Canada instructors, basic training instructors. But we're drill sergeants. When we say drill, that means we're actually literally teaching drill. Like I said before, how to march on parade, that kind of stuff. Keep your room in order. The idea is that we're aggressive, that we're loud, we're abusive even, calling them names, uncaring, overbearing, harsh. At the end of the day, a lot of these instructors are husbands, wives, fathers, mothers themselves, right? They're just people, and we have a role to play. And it was actually interesting to talking to some of my past recruits when we were, when they graduate basic training, they're now a part of the family. And you can shake their hand and give them a high five and say, job well done. And they've messaged me on Facebook and stuff over the last year a bit saying, hey, they would say, hey, PO, call me Ryan. We're Facebook friends. You're in the military now. You don't call me by my rank in a Facebook message. It's kind of weird. Like I'm not your instructor anymore. I might be a higher rank than you, but we're not even the same element. Like you're in the Air Force, I'm in the Navy. Like we've met in basic training. I was your instructor at one point, but you're just a person. I'm just a person, right? There is a little bit of a role we play. I'm obviously different with my recruits than I am with my kids. You should be. I'm different with my recruits than I am with my spouse. So we do play a character, so to speak, but I think just like any actor, I still draw on who I am. So I still am fair. I'm still what I think is nice or kind. I actually cared about my recruits. I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to succeed. So I'd mentor them. And that's the word I should say, that we mentor them. But I will say, I worked with some staff that outside of work, they weren't the nicest people. They were kind of jerks. And so when they were drill instructors they were a little bit harsh. Because outside of their time as an instructor, they were kind of like that too. They were like that to me, like, holy moly.
Yeah, so they probably like to play up to the misconception
Absolutely.
that drill sergeants are supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily. Get the job done to get what you wanted out of the recruits. It was unnecessary to behave that way.
Yeah, and I still see that, of course. This goes for any jobs. I don't want people, to think this is just this goes for any job, whether you're the CEO or a manager at the Nike shop. Don't be a jerk. That's all I'm saying. You can still train, mentor, help people understand what their job is. And that's what I try to do as an instructor without being an a-hole about it. But that's just me. Maybe some people felt that's the only way you could do it, but it is a misconception for real because there are people that were like that. And so I actually know people personally who have left the military because of bad bosses.
Well, there is a stat. The number one reason why people leave any job is not because of the work that they do or are asked to do. It's because of management and how they're treated.
So let me speak to anyone, my military friends listening. Be nice. Anyone who's listening who has a job or a manager, just be fair, be consistent, but you don't have to be a jerk. I don't understand. Anyways, I don't understand. I don't get it. That's just me speaking. I'm 46 years old, and I have seen people leave the military not because of the work, like Jason said, not because of the work, not because of the deployments, not because of the training, because of the toxic work environment. And I think the military has this kind of unique breeding ground, a little bit more than McDonald's. The people that want to be jerks, they get a little bit more leeway because of the rank system, and that's a problem that I really wish would get resolved. All right, well, there you go. Those are the 10 misconceptions about basic training or boot camp that the public seems to have regarding those things. And so Jason and I were talking, well, how do we pick the worst? And I think the worst would be the one that it's a misconception that I really didn't have or Jason didn't really have, like meaning like, so for example, I think Jason, for example, thought at the very beginning, like if he was told that you're not allowed to contact family, I think you would have said, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that wouldn't be a worst pick. That's what we're trying to get. So that's the opposite of the worst pick. That's like, that kind of makes sense. But we found out that is a misconception. So which one, Jason, for you? We'll go through the list real quick. Okay, so here we go. No family contact is allowed whatsoever. Every new military recruit is big and strong. Boot camp is about brainwashing. Boot camp is designed for recruits to fail. New recruits will only do physical training. A physically fit person won't struggle in boot camp. All military recruits are patriotic. Basic training has gotten softer or easier over the years. All military servicemen are sharp shooters, and drill sergeants are jerks. So this is kind of tough. I think for me, maybe I'll start with this one. I think for me, the worst misconception, the one is like, really, I don't know if I'd come up with this one as a misconception, because all the other ones are kind of believable. Even me reading them as being somebody in for 18 years, I get why people thought. But this one, I guess when I read this one was like, I'd never even thought this would be a misconception. But I kind of get it because it happens in movies all the time. But again, I never thought of it myself, was that all military servicemen are sharpshooters. I think that's kind of a silly misconception.
That's the one I was going to pick as well.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. I get it. It's a funny trope to use in movies and TV shows, but I never even considered that would be what people would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to believe that anybody that goes through basic training or is participating in basic training is going to actually be comfortable and proficient at shooting a gun.
Right.
I mean, we didn't grow up with guns.
No.
So to go into basic training and have that, within a few weeks, be experienced enough to be a sharpshooter. Yeah, that doesn't
I love that idea. But it's a great trope they use in TV shows and movies. I'm sure we'll see it again. He's an ex-military member, but I haven't touched a gun in 20 years. But now's your chance to fight back. They pick up the weapon. They're like, they're so good at it. Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, this has been fun. I really hope my listeners have learned a little bit about both Canadian boot camp, a little bit of maybe the U.S. boot camp, what it might be like. I'm just speaking from experience. If people who are instructors or who have gone through this experience something different, I hope you had a good time. If you had a bad time, I'm sorry to hear that. I enjoyed my time actually in basic training. I actually kind of experienced all the stuff you would experience, the teamwork, disappointments, the long days, the fatigue, cold weather. I had an instructor. He was short. He was a short French Air Force sergeant. He was the cliche. I hate to say it. He was short, bad temper on him, yelled all the time, was always disappointed in you. But I'm kind of glad I went through that, And then when I graduated, he was like, "Hey, good job." That was the role. He was playing the role.
Yeah. He had a job to do, and he did it.
Like, he was like a foot shorter than me. He kind of scared me. That's what I liked. I kind of enjoyed that a little bit. I know I've never made any recruit feel afraid, but that wasn't my role. That's just not how I am, right? So I drew from what I am. But yeah, I enjoyed my basic training, and I also enjoyed being an instructor. In fact, when I went through basic training, I said to myself, I want to teach this. I even knew then that I would want to do it. And so 16 years later, I got the chance. It was really, a great experience there.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was a good conversation, Ryan.
Yeah, it was
good
fun.
Insight. Yeah.
All right, remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today, it was all military servicemen are sharpshooters. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, brother. Chat later.
Gamma Gator Productions.